A long time, no part two of movies that changed my life. So let's get right into it. Part two of movies that changed my life. Okay, so let me pull up Letterbox. So I know this is the next movie that changed my life. So we jump from 1949 to 1973, and it's a movie and also like a short TV series. It's called Scenes of a Marriage. It's by Ingmar Bergman, and I would say this is definitely a movie that changed my life. And to recap, movies that changed my life, like what I define it as, are movies that kind of made me think differently, or maybe changed my view on something, or made me feel like I experienced something new, and just something like that. So, with Scenes of a Marriage, basically, it's again self explanatory with the title. It covers a story of a married people who, and basically their tumultuous marriage, and I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to go into, you know, the consequences and what happens and how it, you know, whatever breaks down. But anyways, like within the first few episodes, the husband admits he's having an affair. So, it just kind of goes into their marriage, kind of goes into this, and like they're also their surrounding friends and stuff. I would say this changed my life because like when you think about stories like these, at least, on film, it's not necessarily a new story. Like, we see rom-coms, we see things, and I say it's life-changing because it was literally a lot of the episodes were only shot in one scene. They were just talking. They weren't really doing anything you would say, is like eye-catching or anything like that. But it changed my life because it really goes to show how even like the basic human interactions and a relationship can change within just like one conversation. And it's amazing because like I know, obviously we do this every day, whether, you don't say certain things or you say certain things to change a relationship or something like that. But it's interesting how a few sentences could really just change the outcome of a relationship, whether it's romantic, whether it's a friendship. And it really made me think about that. And I really love this TV series. I haven't seen the director also made a theatrical version of the film, which is 2 hours long. I haven't seen it. I've been wanting to see it because I wonder what he cut out and what he put in or whatever. So I've only seen the episodes because he made basically a limited series of this stuff, of this story, and then he also made a theatrical release. And it was just very it was funny because it was like, when I first got into it, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this because, it's very basic story, nothing's really going on, but yet it was so entrancing to watch. Like, when I watched the first episode, I got so into it, and I ended up finishing the series, or like the limited series. So it was just kind of amazing, and it made me also think about how, what's the word? How impactful, conversations can be. Like, I mean, obviously, anybody hearing this is like, obviously words matter, but it's funny to think about that in like a different kind of level of intensity when you're just considering, wow, like one sentence, two words could make or break a relationship. Two words can change the level of a relationship. It's amazing how much meaning, certain things have, and they don't really require that much effort to, let's say, talk, like, to say, or to, and it kind of made me think maybe I'm thinking too deep, I'm thinking way too much. This is my problem. I'm an overthinker, but I rather overthink about this stuff than my own problems. So, it kind of just made me, my eyes, not, let's say, I don't want to say my eyes opened or anything like that, but like it really made me kind of think of how, also like in film in general, like these things are so simplistic, but the way you execute them, the way, the actors are, or it really goes to show how a story you may assume that is boring or, not interesting, is actually so entrancing, and it may be basic, compared to a lot of different weird stories, we have movies going on now. it's actually very engaging. However, again, some people may not agree. Some people may watch this and be like, dang, it's boring. So I definitely respect that because I expected it to be boring. It's the same thing I said with Citizen Kane. And a lot of people don't like Citizen Kane too. So it was, each to their own. So I actually forgot about a movie. I'm gonna go back. I think, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I think I forgot a movie. I was gonna do Okay, actually, we're gonna jump back to 1953. And this movie I want to cover that changed my life or made me think about things in a certain way is The Earrings of Madame Day. That's just the title, The Earrings of Madame Day. And it's a French film directed by Max Ophūls. It stars Charles Boyer and Daniel Deroux, and Vittorio De Sica. I knew Vittorio De Sica as an Italian filmmaker. Like I knew of him. I think the most famous film he's done is Bicycle Thieves, which I still haven't seen. But I was surprised. I didn't know he did acting too. And in this film, he's great. I like him. Um, but anyways, so basically, this film centers on Daniel Deroux, who's a countess. Her name is Countess Louise, and she sells the earrings her husband gave her on their wedding day to pay off gambling debts. And eventually, her husband finds out about this and just kind of like it gets the ball rolling on just different things that she's like lying about and stuff like that. And it just basically focuses how like the earrings are kind of like passed on from hand to hand, and yeah. So I I gave this film a 5 out of 5 stars. I genuinely love this film. And it was also another movie that I thought was gonna be really boring. I Here's the thing. I always try to be realistic about movies, I'm never like, "Oh my God, like this person on Letterboxd said it was the greatest film ever made. I'm gonna like it." No, I don't care if it is the greatest film ever made, if I personally think it looks boring, I'm gonna expect it to be boring until I finish the film. I don't, that's why I really don't give credence. Like, I mean, I do give credence in the sense that yes, like maybe their filmmaking like achievements, technical wise, if they list certain movies on the greatest film ever made. But I mean, it depends. Like, I mean, some films may be timeless, but some films like are timeless to a point where it's like, I don't know if it's still relevant anymore. Maybe certain themes are relevant, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, some with the generation now with attention span and TikTok, it's a whole thing. So who knows? But anyways, back to the main point. So the earrings of Madame Day was again, I was expecting it to be boring, but it was a genuinely heartfelt, amazing film. And the way it changed my life, was it made me think about how, in the beginning of this film, these earrings were something that she didn't care about, and the film, so I'm not gonna like spoil it, but it's the beginning of the film. So people who watch the movie, it's gonna be the beginning of the film, so you're gonna see it anyways. But basically, she's going through her things in the beginning of the film and picking out what she's going to sell in order to pay off her gambling debts, and then she settles on these earrings. And you can see going through her things, and she's like, "Oh, I don't want to give this away, or I don't want to give this away." And so watching the film, it made me feel like, throughout time, sometimes when it comes to certain material things, the value of them changes, and it made me really, this film kind of makes you think about that, like how something that maybe didn't matter to you a couple years ago matters to you so much now because of the value behind it, whether it's who gave it, whether it's who else owned it, whether it's, who the meaning of why they gave it to you behind it, like it can change. Like there were certain things, when I a couple like this is very probably a bad example, but my Wii, not really materialistically, high in value, I would say, but it's not a diamond, but in the past, like once I was moving out, I was like, oh my God, like let me just give this away. And now when I came like when all these vintage little Game Boys and stuff like that were getting popular again, and I realized how much I actually miss these games and these old game systems. I actually am so glad my mom kept my Wii, and I keep it with me now. And now I'm going to keep it with keep all my old technology with me rather than giving it away, unless I upgrade or whatever. But it obviously not the best example because I don't have any diamond rings or anything, but it goes to show it's just like one example of how certain items, yes, material things are material things, but sometimes the meaning of them changes. Like, back then I was just like, oh, this is a symbol of, just my childhood that I'm trying to get away from. And now it's like, oh, it's a symbol of my childhood that I treasure. I really enjoyed my time spending like on the Wii. Again, maybe not the best example, but the movie made me think something like that. It's how material, even though yes, items are materialistic, when you die with whatever clothes on your back, whatever, you don't die with things. But, it made me think about how the value of something can change. And it's not necessarily the monetary value, but it's the emotional value of it, if that's the sense. And I feel like this film is such a great um example of that. And the the way she values things changes exponentially by the end of the film, and it's amazing. And I mean, watching the film, with her and her lying, it gets very frustrating, honestly. But but I just thought it was an amazing film, to kind of just it made me think about this, and it changed my, life in a way. So yeah. But yeah, that was The Earrings of Madame Day. Let me see before I jump back to the 70s if there's any more films. Okay. So 70s. I was trying to do this in chronological order. But okay. So, I don't think there's any other in the 70s. So The Earrings of Madame Day, then The Scenes of a Marriage, and let's see. So the next one, I'm gonna jump to the 90s, Chungking Express, which is pretty self-explanatory. I think anybody who has talked to me knows that I love Wong Kar-wai. A lot of people love Wong Kar-wai. So many people love Wong Kar-wai that now people are actually making jokes about it. I've seen people making fun of people who like Wong Kar-wai, which is awesome because I'm so glad I didn't. When I was a kid, I felt like, at least where I was, I felt like nobody knew who he was. So now I'm, hey, at least people know who he is. Because, people who like Wong Kar-wai are fake deep and they're like, oh, like so, I don't know. But anyways, Chungking Express. I watched it first. Oh wait, let me go into the obviously directed by Wong Kar-wai. It stars Takeshi Kaneshiro, Tony Leung, and I believe I forgot what her name is, Bridget Lin, and Faye Wong. So this probably a cliche movie to have as changed my life. I don't know what's cliche, but it did change my life because when I watched it, I first watched it when I was 13 years old. And I grew up in the Midwest. So I feel like obviously there is not a lot of diversity in the Midwest, at least when I grew up there. Now maybe, I don't know, like my hometown has changed a bit. Um but there is not a lot of diversity in the Midwest. It's boring, it's bland. I'm sorry. Unless you live in like a big metropolitan city like Chicago or something like that. I would say Cincinnati, but my only example is Chicago. So, yeah. Um, it changed my life because I really felt like it was kind of like a screenshot into a different, not like a different time, but a different, um, I'm trying to think of a good word. Just a different setting. That's the word. Different setting. Because, like, at that time, obviously, I had never traveled out of the area, like, out of the states. I have never really experienced, like, a lot of people with different cultures. Because, like, when I came to California, it was a big culture shock because there are so many different Asian people here. There are so many different people. And then when you go to New York, there's, like, so many different immigrants. Like, it's not only Asian people, it's, like, people from Africa, Jamaican people. Like, it's just, it's even more diverse. California is diverse, but I feel like I encountered a lot more Asian people rather than, like, you know, African or, more Asian people, compared to, at least where I was. So, and this was, a film done in another country, done in Hong Kong. And it just, even though it is fictional, yes, it's fictional. I just feel like the diversity in the film, with people from like India, in Hong Kong, as well as, people who grew up there. I just felt like it was such a cool thing to see. Because, obviously at that time I was never in an environment like that. I had never gone to Asia. So, it's just really cool to see the diversity within Asia as well. Um, so I had to say it changed my life in a way because it really made me want to travel. It made me want to go to places like maybe not Chungking mansions or anything, but like Asia itself. And it kind of gives you a screenshot of how, I don't know, how life is just, there's more to life. I know the story itself does not focus on, life. It focuses on two policemen who fall in love, and they're kind of like pining after women, or they're getting over breakups. So it's not exactly the story, but it had a profound effect in me in a way that, it felt like I was experiencing a different world, a world that I was unfamiliar of. Now, of course, I know going to Hong Kong is no Wong Kar movie. It's not. I'm not that ignorant. But, that's what I kind of like about Wong Kar-wai is that, yes, he has all these kind of the same convoluted storyline of, lost love, or like people pining over somebody they can't have. But, one thing I like is he incorporates like his own kind of history into it. Like within The Mood for Love, he incorporated, this is the time period that he grew up in, and, the camaraderie in the film with like the different couples, and with married people renting a room and like somebody else's apartment. Like that was kind of like the norm. I don't know how it is now, but that at least he was explaining this was how it was back then. And so it's, I don't know, it just makes you, that's why like I try to watch a lot of international film, because I feel like it's definitely, what's the word? It kind of opens you up to a perception that you will probably never experience. Like I'm a Asian person in America, a Indian, Burmese person. My perception is not going to be the same as somebody's perception in China, somebody's perception in Singapore, in France, and like that's why a lot of the times I always advocate for people to watch international films. And if you, okay, I'm gonna be honest, like I don't criticize anybody who doesn't want to watch films that they don't like. If you don't like a film, that's fine. I respect that. But if you don't like a film because you don't want to read subtitles, I don't respect you. I don't care. It's subtitles. Read them. You don't even read a book. Read that's all I gotta say. Like if you can't read subtitles, then why are you even watching movies anyways? Like girl, I'm sorry. I don't know, like people, because people were complaining about that with Parasite, and it made me so mad. I'm like, it's subtitles. It's not like. But anyways, that's why I advocate for people watching international film, because media, whether we like it or not, it probably, it I don't want to say exuberates, but it usually has a message, even if it's not like purposeful. Like I think there, for an example, the director of Twister, the remake, that BS, um, he was like, "Oh, I didn't include climate change in the movie because I just don't want people to focus on politics." He's like, "I don't think media is supposed to have a message or anything like that." And it's funny because within his statement itself, it implies a message that people in general are like trying to gloss over the fact that politics are intertwined with everything. Climate change is here, and like people like to look over that. And with like his statement itself is like implies a message. Like whether you like it or not, it implies a message that you just don't want to pay attention to climate change because you feel like it doesn't affect you. So that's so that's what I was talking about in essence to watching international film, because it's like a lot of this media kind of portrays a message, whether it's purposeful or not purposeful. And, a lot of the times you don't really think about these perceptions unless you really experience them, you know? And I feel like even though if a film is fictional or not, you can at least try to understand the message behind it and or the perception behind it. 'Cause like, I just feel like I don't know. There's a lot of rambling here. I'm sorry, but but yeah, long story short, watch international films because the perceptions that you have are so limiting and so full of biases. Like, and it's just like, wouldn't you want to experience the eyes of another director, of another creator in a different country, in a different state of mind? I mean, it's like think of all the stories, the films, the songs, the media that you will never experience because you are living in one existence. Like you're living in one existence only, unless you believe in reincarnation, then okay. But like if you don't, you're living in one existence and you're not going to be able to experience this in your lifetime. Like, not, even if I watch one, two, three movies a day, I'm still not going to be able to experience it. So it's like, don't you want to do this? That's why a lot of times I kind of, again, people can do what they want, but I kind of feel sad that people don't want to watch foreign films because it's like, these are points of view that you are purposely not seeing, you know? And this is not implications of anything political or anything like that, but like these are experiences that you will never get to see or understand or try to sympathize with, and you're missing out on that. Like that's sad, you know? So because like, not everybody has like a passport, not everybody can travel, of course. But it's like I feel like, watching movies, reading media, it gives you that sense of understanding somebody else's perspective. So yeah, that's just my long rant. And that's how it changed my life. It made me feel like I really should seek out more types of media because, you know, I don't know how long I'm gonna be here. And, I definitely mourn the fact that I will not be able to experience every single type of media um that is available to me? So yeah. Okay. Let us see what else. I feel like this is mm, mm, mm. Okay. I feel like this is the end. If I do have any more movies, I will. I think I have two more movies. Okay, so the next movie I'm going to cover is actually a recent watch. I watched this, I think last month or earlier this month. It's Amores Perros. It's by Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu. I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I only watched it because it stars Gael Garcia Bernal. I love Gael Garcia Bernal. I don't care. I will watch any film for. So basically, it is a film that covers how this one car crash in Mexico City sets off a chain of events in three different people's lives. One is played by Gael Garcia Bernal. He's a young man who's trying to get with his sister-in-law. Another is a supermodel, and another is a homeless man. And also I think an American filmmaker ripped this off and made the film Crash. Um, that won an Academy Award in 2004, I think, or 2000 something, I don't know. But anyways, it's a shame because Amores Perros is probably better than that film. So, yes, it's a Mexican film, so it's in Spanish. But I would say this film changed my life because it really goes to show, it's another film that goes to show how, big and I mean even small things like can be connected um to different people. Like, I mean it shows how, even if you're not necessarily related or like have mutual friends with a person, if you're in the same area or same, country or city, like you can probably find a connection. Like it shows how as a society, like some things are very interconnected, and it shows how like, you know, every decision we make could affect somebody else's life or could affect, you know, not only yours, but somebody else's, and not only somebody close to you. So it really made me think about that, how, a lot of decisions we make are kind of like a domino effect, not only in our own lives, but in other people's lives, um, whether it's, going to a certain coffee shop, changing it up, making a wrong turn and ended up, hitting somebody. So it's like with a car, I don't know, just random things. So it definitely made me think about how we're all like connected. And then also, um, not only with this car crash, but this car crash was all caused by a dog. So in the stories, like it's kind of separated into three stories. And in the stories, there's always like an animal, a specific type of like a specific dog that really affects the character in some sort of way, like the character that's the focus of the story. And also it made me think about how, you know, animals, these like some people may not hold the same value for animals, which sucks, but I hold animals to a very high, like obviously to a very high value because I love animals. And you know, it shows how they can also affect our lives in different ways. Like when I watched this movie, it made me think about like my old pigeon Snowball, who passed away a couple years ago. If she didn't pass away, I probably would have never met one of my internet friends. I was friends with her since the pandemic for like 3 years. And I met her in New York because I was upset and I was like, okay, maybe I should go leave. And I left for New York and I met her on a whim. Like we didn't really plan this out in advance. I just met her. And so I thought it was really like interesting, how that play out. Because like if she didn't pass away, I probably would have never met my friend. Like at least, as soon as I thought. So, and I feel like a lot of the stuff also in relation to the dogs in the film, because it's called Amores Perros, it really kind of affects the actions of the characters and the consequences of the characters as well. So again, as you can see, I am not the best at talking. I'm not eloquent, but it made me really think about how interconnected we are with, not only the people around us that know us, that talk to us, but people that we may not even see again, like people that we may only see, by crossing the street, or people we may not even see on a daily basis, and we can affect their lives so drastically. And so I really love this film. However, I do have to warn, this film includes a lot of animal death, like a lot of dead dogs. A lot. More than I expected. And if you like animals, it's honestly, it was kind of hard to watch. It was like very hard to watch. But other than that, it was a very, very good film and such a great film, honestly. So that was made in, what is it, 2000. So we jumped from 73, 2000. Let me see. Let's see. Okay, I think this will probably be the last film that I go over. And it's Before Sunset. It was made in 2004 by Richard Linklater, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this. It stars Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. So this is basically the second installation of the Before Sunrise trilogy. It's a trilogy. The first film was made in 1994. Second film was made 10 years later. Third film was made 10 years later. So I don't want to spoil it, but basically let's give it, if you haven't seen the trilogy, but to give a gist of it, um they met 10 years ago. They say they're going to meet again, and then they met 10 years later. And so they're like in their 30s because they originally met in their 20s. So they're in their 30s, they reconnect, and basically they're walking around Paris and talking, just like the first film where they're walking around Vienna and talking. So again, it's, when you look at the film itself, you kind of think, oh, this is going to be boring. They're not doing anything. They're just talking. And not going to lie, I don't know. I didn't know of the film's like premise, how it was set up. I just read the synopsis, I think. So I didn't have any expectations going in, but I was very pleasantly surprised with the first one and this one, even more so with this one. And I would say this one is the best one out of the trilogy, and I've seen people say this as well. But I'm not influenced by them. This is personally I feel like is the best one in the trilogy. The reason it I would say changed my life would be is because I don't know, it's hard to I guess it just kind of goes to show how people can, grow, how people can reconnect and, just I guess okay, how do I describe it? It changed my life because I just feel like it's such it's more in terms of, how the film was done rather than like a personal change my life thing. I don't know. Okay, scratch that. Let me let me try this again. Okay. So it changed my life because the film itself, you don't expect it to be a lot, but the way they talk, the chemistry, everything, it's just so endearing to watch. And then on top of that, I just feel like it really, the reconnection and seeing how they have grown as people, how they've, you know, went through things is just such an amazing thing to experience, honestly. And maybe that's not necessarily a change my life, sort of thing, as in like a way I think, but it I guess it did change, like made me think about stuff, how we change as people fundamentally, every few years. Maybe not everybody, but I feel like especially in these earlier years, 20s, 30s, you know, there's so much that goes on. You're trying to figure out so much that y some people fundamentally have changed. And it made me think about how I would also change in the past few years. And it's just kind of amazing how also when you like reconnect with people after so many years, sometimes things just pick up where they're left off, and I don't know, their relationship in the film was just so it's just so amazing to see, and it changed my life because if also changed my life because it felt like this is not like the average rom-com. This is not like, oh, average plot, climax, turning point, blah blah blah. This is something different. This is something it feels real, it feels genuine, which is probably the better reason that it changed my life watching it because it doesn't give typical film. It doesn't give typical rom-com. It doesn't give, and and it's not. It's just like scenes of a marriage where it's like you think, oh, it's gonna be boring, but it's like the way they act, the seamless way they talk, the way they reconnect after years, and that sense of nostalgia, it just makes you, it just sucks you in, you want to see what's going on, you want to see what they talk about, you want to see what they're doing, what they're saying, how they feel, if they feel the same, and that's just such an amazing part of the story, an amazing part of the film itself. And I just feel like this is so much better than the first film. Because with the first film, yes, they meet for the first time and you kind of get that awkwardness and you like that, yeah. But with this second film, you can see how much they have changed as people. Maybe not a lot, maybe not, you know, too little, but and that reconnection is what makes it so powerful to see, it's not your average romance film, and it's something that just feels like it feels real. It's not for, it's not like movies that with like tons of sex where it's like, it kind of feels like it's done for shock factor, which, I mean, again, like, that's a whole other topic. But it just feels like something that's legitimate, something that's not fake. And that also, I would say this is probably the changing life factor is like, film wise, it just made me feel like, there's more than just the average, storyline that we always see. There's more to doing things, obviously. Um, so yeah. Really, once again, really bad explaining skills. I'm so sorry. But yeah, these films have really sometimes either they change the way I think about movies or I approach movies, or they've made me think about personal things, in reference to my life, where whether it's material things or whether it's, thinking, changing my thinking on how to deal with things, so, or, in the case of watching foreign film like Chungking Express, changing, my perceptions or changing what I, you know, view. If I'm constantly viewing American media, which there's nothing wrong with, of course, my perception is concrete to American media. It's not, you know, I'm not gonna branch out much. And unfortunately, there is a lot of people like that. But again, I mean, to each to their own, the only thing I'm gonna criticize is if you can't read subtitles, that's such a bad reason. That's such a dumb reason. I'm sorry. Um, that's the only time I'll criticize, honestly. But yeah, a lot of these movies have either made me, again, change the way I think how a film should be done or something like that, or change the way I perceive things about whether in my personal life or whatnot. But yes, this is the rambly part 2 of movies that changed my life. Thank you for watching if you did watch. If you didn't watch, okay, thanks for clicking on me anyways. Um, but yeah, will be hopefully I will be doing a July recap of all the films I've seen in July, and I'm gonna start doing that because yeah.